We don't really say good afternoon today because it's Tisha B'Av. It's a fast day. It's a national day of mourning. We don't eat. We don't drink. We're commemorating the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. That's probably part of the reason why my voice is a little bit cracked today. We don't drink, and it's a time of reflection and a time of we don't even learn Torah because learning Torah is a source of joy. When someone learns Torah, it brings them joy. However, there's an exception, and that is that certain parts of Torah either are about sadness, like the story of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, the temple, or the prophecies that talk about the destruction. And therefore, these things we do speak about, even though it's learning, because it doesn't exactly bring joy. The topic today is the story of the destruction. We're going to learn a section from Gemara, from the Talmud, volume Gittin, Sefta Gittin. It's page 55b, which tells us a little bit about the story of how the destruction of the temple came about. We're going to, I'll tell you what it says here without getting into all the Aramaic words, but here and there we'll read it inside, and we'll share the content of what took place. Says the Gemara, Akamsa ubar Kamsa chruv Yerushalayim. Because of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, Yerushalayim was destroyed. Atarnagela und Tarnagolta chruv Tur Malka. Because of Tarnagol and Tarnagolta, Tur Malka, the tower of the queen, of the king, was destroyed. Nashaka, the district of Beitar. Okay, let's talk about our context here is from Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. Because of these people, Yerushalayim was destroyed. Says the story, the Gemara, the story as follows. There was once a person. He had a friend. His friend's name was Kamsa. He loved this dear friend of his. And he had an enemy, whose enemy's name was Bar Kamsa. Now this fellow made a party. And he told his attendant, I want you to go and invite my friend Kamsa. Bring him here for my party. Now this attendant of his got confused. Kamsa, Bar Kamsa, sounds the same thing. He went and he brought his friend, his enemy, Bar Kamsa. They're sitting at this beautiful banquet, and this wealthy man who invited many, many people to participate, he sees, lo and behold, an uninvited guest. Bar Kamsa, his enemy, is sitting there. The Gemara says, he walked over to him, and he says, one second, this is my enemy. He gets over and he says, get up and get out. You're not invited. So this person, he said, come on, I'm already here. Let me stay. I'll pay for my meal. He said, no. Get up and get out. So he said, wait, I'll pay for half of your whole party. Imagine you're making a banquet. It's costing you thousands and thousands of dollars. And this one guest who you don't really want to be there says, I'll pay you for half your bill. He said, no, get up and get out. And he was humiliated. So he said, I'll pay you for the whole entire party. Just don't kick me out. And this person said, no. He took him by the hand, says the Gemara, and he schlepped him out of the banquet hall. He was humiliated. And he said, not only is it bad that this person chased me out, but there were scholars sitting there. And they saw. And they didn't stop him, which means they probably agree with this behavior. I am going to take revenge. He got up and he went to Rome. And he went to the emperor of Rome and he told him, says the Gemara, that the Jewish people have rebelled against you. They rebelled against you. So the emperor wasn't so convinced. Some guy comes and says the Jewish people rebelled against you. He said, how do you know? He said, not a big deal. Why don't you send them a korban? Why don't you send an offering? Take an animal, send it over. And you'll see. If they bring the offering, that means that they like you. But if they're not going to offer in the temple your korban, that means that they're rebelling. And that's fine. He took an animal, he gave it to Bar Kamsa, and he said, you be my messenger, take this to the Jewish people in the temple and tell them to bring it as an offering from the emperor for the Jewish God. So he went. Now along the way, says the Gemara, he took the animal and he made a mum. He made a blemish in the animal. We have a rule. It's actually a biblical law that if you want to bring a korban and offering in the temple, it has to be blemish free. Okay, it can't be ruined. It can't have some type of deficiency in the animal. And if it does, then you're not allowed to bring it as a korban. Can't bring out a half animal. So what this person did was, on the way, Bar Kamsa went and he made a mum in the animal, caused the blemish, knowing that the Jewish people will not accept this as a korban. Where did he make the blemish? On the upper lip of the animal. Another opinion says it was in the eyelid of the animal. But he caused a blemish. What type of blemish? A blemish that, according to Jewish law, when it comes to sacrifices, we will not bring such an animal because it has a blemish. But according to the Romans and the idol worshippers, they also have sacrifices they bring, but they have a different rule. According to their rules, as long as it's not missing a limb, it's fit for a sacrifice. So now they bring an animal to the Beis HaMikdash. Lo and behold, this is Bar Kamsa, who frankly they knew kind of who he was, that he was an informant. And he came with a korban, and he says, this is from the Roman emperor. And the Jewish people realize this is trouble because they saw there's a blemish. What do we do? If we say no, the message will get back. The emperor will be upset at us. Who knows what he'll do? Maybe he'll destroy Jerusalem. Maybe he'll burn the temple down. Who knows what he's going to do? So some of the Rabbanan said, let's go and make an exception to the rule and bring this offering, even though you're not supposed to, but for the sake of peace with the king. Okay, we don't want there should be anger, rage, from the king. Let's go and bring it anyways, even though it's not allowed. But there was a sage there, that was Zechariah ben Avkulas was his name, and he said, no, if you're going to make an exception, people are not going to know this was an exception. They're going to say you're allowed to bring an animal, even if it has a blemish, for a korban. Torah says you're not allowed to. But I was in the temple and I saw they did it once. They're not going to know the details. There was a king that sent. There was a guy. He was an informant. He was checking. Did we rebel against the king? Did we not rebel against the king? Let's go. We can't do that. And the sages said, okay, we're not going to. Let's kill this man. Why? He's an informant. He went to the Roman emperor. He made up a story against the Jews. He's causing potentially millions of Jews to be killed. Let's kill him before he does any damage. And if Zechariah ben Avkulas said, no, we can't kill him. Because if we kill him, people will say that if you make a blemish in an animal, which is destined for an offering, that you have to get killed. That's going to be misconstrued, misinterpreted laws. Can't do it. So they didn't kill him, and they didn't bring the offering. And this is what the Gemara tells us, that Rabbi Yochanan said, the bashfulness or the shyness of Rabbi Zechariah ben Avkulas destroyed our temple. If he would have stood up and said, bring it anyways, or kill this person because he's causing too much destruction, we would have avoided this whole problem. And the Gemara says, it destroyed our home, it burnt our heichal, our temple, and it chased us away, it exiled us all from our land. Now the Gemara gets into, can I ask a question? Stop for one question. Go ahead. Or we could ask it after.
Oh, 1 second. I already forgot.
Okay, we'll come back.
What happens?
We'll do another Q&A.
If they would have killed him, then wouldn't that news have gotten back to the emperor too?
It probably would, but at least there wouldn't be proof that the Jewish people rebelled against the king. I'm sure there was some thought process involved there of how that's going to help. So the Gemara tells us what happened next. Obviously, it got back to the emperor, and he's upset. Shadar Iluya Niron Caesar. He sent Niron Caesar to Yerushalayim to go and destroy it, conquer Yerushalayim. So this Niron was not a fool, and he knows he's starting up with the Jewish people. He wanted to be sure that what he's doing is a good idea. He'll be successful. So what he did was he went and he threw an arrow. As he got close to Yerushalayim, he threw an arrow to the east. And it landed in Yerushalayim. This was a sign for him that he's going to be successful. But who knows? Maybe if you throw it to the east, that's where Yerushalayim is. Or that's how it turned out. So he took another arrow and he threw it to the west. It also fell in Yerushalayim. So then he took arrows and he threw arrows in all four directions. And wherever he shot the arrow, somehow it landed in Yerushalayim. And he said, this is a sign, I'll be successful in conquering Yerushalayim. He wasn't done yet. We have a concept, it's actually a Jewish concept, you find it at Mordechai HaTzadik, that when you want to know what to do about something, you want to know if it's a good idea or not, we don't do superstitious things. You don't ask people, you don't make a sign. If when I get to the light, it's going to be green, then I'm going to make that business deal today. Or if my car starts easily, I'll make, if it's not raining, I'll do it. We don't do any of that type of stuff. However, you could ask a child, what have you learned today? A verse in Torah that he learned. And if he tells you something positive, you could take it as a positive message. This Niron was by Yerushalayim. He saw a Jewish kid. And he said, tell me, what have you learned today? Psaikli psukech, tell me your verse. So he told him that the verse from Yechezkel, the prophet, that says, "V'nasati estikmasi be'edom." I'm going to take my revenge in Edom, which is the enemy of the Jewish people, in the hands of my nation, the Jews. Which basically means that Hashem is going to take revenge from those that destroy Jerusalem. Now, this Niron said, one second, Hashem wants to destroy his home. He has a plan to destroy the temple. And then he wants to wipe his hands with the person that did it. He's going to punish me. I'm not doing that. And Niron left and he converted to Judaism. He became Jewish. Now, the emperor sent someone else. Vespasian was his name. He sent him to conquer Yerushalayim. And he went, and we're told that he made a siege. He locked the whole city of Yerushalayim for 3 years. Now, beautiful, beautiful story. There were three, well, not so beautiful, obviously, but this part is amazing. There were three wealthy people that lived in Yerushalayim. First one's name was Nakdimin ben Gurion. The second one was Ben Kalba Savua. And the third one was Ben Tzitzis HaKeshes. There were three wealthy, wealthy families. Nakdimin ben Gurion was called Nakdimin because the Nakdimin means like a hole, piercing a hole. He once needed to get water for the Jewish people. And he went to a certain wealthy Arab person and asked him to have water from his wells. And he said, yes, but if you don't return it to me by a certain date, in other words, if it doesn't rain by then you have to pay me. So he said, okay, by this and this date, if it doesn't rain, I'll pay you by sunset. And they went, and the time came, and there was no rain. And this merchant was getting very excited because Nakdimin is going to have to pay him on behalf of the Jewish people. But it got dark, and there was no rain. All of a sudden, out of the clouds, the sun came back, pierced through the clouds. And Nakdimin said, look, it's still daytime. And it rained, and he didn't have to pay. But the point is, he's a very wealthy man. The other person was called Ben Kalba Savua. The reason it was called Ben Kalba Savua is because Kalba Savua means a satiated dog. And anyone that was hungry like a dog that went into this man's house left stuffed. Left completely satiated. So he was a very wealthy man, gave a lot of charity. And the third person was called Ben Tzitzis HaKesses. And tzitzis HaKesses means it's the one of tzitzis, corners or fringes of the garment, on cloth. There's two opinions why he was called that. One opinion is because whenever he went somewhere, they always had the corners of his garments sitting on cloth. He never walked on the street. They put like red carpets out or some kind of fine material. So he was nicknamed that because he never walked on the streets. It wasn't comfortable. And another opinion is that his seat was always placed when he went for meetings and stuff, it was placed among the great dignitaries of Rome. So Kesses, the cushion. But anyway, these three people were very wealthy people. And they came to our sages, they came to Chachamim, and they said, listen, we have enough to sustain the Jewish people. Right? Jerusalem is under siege. The first one said, I could sustain the Jewish nation, of the people of Jerusalem, with wheat and barley for 21 years. The other one said, I have enough in my storehouses to sustain the Jewish people with wine, salt, and oil for 3 years. And the third one said, I have enough wood, firewood, for 21 years. And the Chachamim praised the one that has the wood more than anyone else. Rav Chisda, Gemara tells us, Rav Chisda would give his keys, his treasure houses, to, we have an interesting fly here today, would give the keys to his treasure house to his servant, all his keys, besides the keys to the storehouse of wood. Having wood to be able to heat up your house, in this case, be able to bake bread, is very valuable. And our sages felt that the one that promised to give wood, it was praised more than anyone else. Rav Chisda said that a storehouse of wheat requires 60 storehouses of wood to actually bake it. You could have all the wheat in the world. If you don't have wood to be able to bake it, you have no bread. Okay. Havu buhu hanu baryoni. Baryoni are these empty people. They're people who, let's just say, they were up to no good. And they had a different idea. They locked Yerushalayim, although it was under siege. I guess Jews, if they wanted to go to talk to the Romans, they could get out. And these Baryonim, Jewish people, didn't let them get out. And our sages came and they said, let's try to make peace with the Romans. Let's get out. Let's have a conversation. Let's go talk to them. What do they want from us? Maybe it's taxes, maybe something else. We'll have a conversation. These Baryonim said, no, let's have a battle with them. Let's defeat them. Our sages said, don't start a war with the Romans. It's not going to work. It's not going to be successful. They said, oh yeah? And these Baryonim went and they burned down the storehouse of the wheat and the barley. Now there's no choice. Now there's a hunger. A hunger usually games off, right? Or games on. So we were under siege, but we had enough to sustain us for 21 years. But after 3 years, they burnt down this, the Baryonim, the Jewish insiders, they went and burnt it down. Now you have a hunger in Yerushalayim. Story. Martha, the daughter of Baitus, was a very wealthy woman that lived in Yerushalayim. She sent her messenger, now there's a hunger, she sent one of her servants, go to the marketplace and bring me smida. Smida is bread that's made of very, very fine flour, the best type of flour. Bring me a loaf of bread made of the best type of flour. The money was not an issue. By the time he went and got there and wanted to buy it, the Gemara says, it was gone. It was sold out. So he comes back home and he says, there is no smida bread, but there is chivrita, there's white flour bread. He says, fine, get me the white flour bread. So he goes back to the marketplace. And by the time he got there, I wanted to buy it, white bread was sold out. So he comes back to his master and he tells her, listen, the white bread is gone. They have the coarse bread, gushkila. So she said, okay, get me the coarse bread. I guess maybe it was dark bread, black bread, or give me the black bread. So she went. He went back. By the time he got there, the bread was gone. So he comes back home and he says to the master, to Martha, he says, there's no coarse bread either. All there is now is bread from barley. Fine, get me the barley bread. So he goes back. By the time he gets there, there's no barley bread. Comes back home and he says, sorry, there's no barley bread. Basically, there's nothing left. So she said, she'll go herself. Now, here's the thing. She wasn't wearing shoes, but she was hungry. So she walked out without her shoes. She goes out and she stepped, the Gemara says, on, how to say this in a nice way, on the dung of an ox. Her foot stepped in it and she was barefoot. And she was a wealthy person who wasn't used to any type of dirt and these type of stuff. Let's call her an aristocrat. And she was so disgusted by it that she died. Another opinion is that it wasn't that she stood on the dung of an ox. What really happened here was she ate the figs of Reb Tzaddik. Reb Tzaddik was a great sage, Tzaddik, who was fasting for 40 years that the Beis HaMikdash should not be destroyed. There were some warning signs, and he didn't want the temple to be destroyed, so he fasted for 40 years that Hashem should forgive us. And he was so malnourished, he would eat probably at night or whatever, that when he ate something, you could see on the outside of his neck, you could see what he was eating. You could see it being swallowed. When he was getting better, he would take a fig and suck the juice out of the fig and throw the fig away. He couldn't eat the fig. That's what she ate. The sucked figs. She ate that. And she was so nauseated by what she ate that she was dying. And while she was dying, she took her gold and silver and she threw it into the streets. And she said, what do I need all this for? It's worthless to me. That's what the Gemara says. The prophet says they threw their gold and silver in Yerushalayim, the streets. They threw their silver in the streets. It was one of the prophecies how bad it's going to be, that the money will be worthless. There's a hunger. There's nothing to eat. Money's not going to buy you stuff that doesn't exist. The Gemara then continues and tells us the continuation of the story, which we'll stop here. Maybe we have time later to do another session. But the Gemara talks over there about the Rabbi Yechanan, who had Yechanan ben Zakkai. His nephew was the head of the Baryanim, his sister's son. And he sent a messenger to him in secret to see if maybe we could work something out here. I want to go talk to the Romans. What kind of craziness is this? Jews are dying in the streets, and you're not letting anyone out. We'll see, hopefully later, what happened. Thank you for joining. Have an easy fast, and may this day be transformed to a day of Mashiach's coming speedily in our days.